The galaxy was full of wonder and mystery, home to thousands of intelligent species. Yet in all its vastness, humans were still seen as one of the weakest races.
Ow.
Most of the alien civilizations in the galaxy had long mastered the art of war. Advanced technologies and powerful fleets, they had established themselves as the dominant powers in the universe. While humanity had only recently begun to spread beyond their homeworld, humans had reached the stars. But their ships were slow, old-fashioned by galactic standards. They were small and unremarkable compared to the massive, glowing warships of the alien fleets that dominated the cosmos. But what the galaxy didn't know was that the human race had kept a secret for centuries. On the day of the Great Summit, where the galaxy's most powerful species gathered, the truth would soon be revealed. It was a time for the leaders of the galaxy to discuss the future of humanity. Many were eager to discuss Earth's potential but dismissed the humans as weak, backward, and insignificant. The council, made up of representatives from various galactic species, met in a massive chamber floating high above a dark planet. The room was large, filled with the greatest minds of the galaxy, each seated at a grand table where decisions were made that shaped the course of history. At the head of the table sat Ambassador Crick of the Syrexians, a tall, angular being with silver skin. He leaned back in his chair and spoke, his voice dripping with disdain. "The humans are a primitive species," he said, his sharp eyes scanning the table of alien representatives.
Hey.
"Their technology is outdated. Their fleet is nothing more than a toy compared to our might." A low murmur spread through the room, followed by quiet laughter. The Creel, an insect-like species known for their hive minds, buzzed in unison. "Yes, we should offer them more teaching," one of them said, their voices harmonizing in eerie unison. "Perhaps some basic weapons training." The laughter continued as more voices joined in, echoing across the chamber. The humans had long been ridiculed in galactic circles. Despite their bold attempts to join the Galactic Council, no one took them seriously. Earth's military was laughable to the galactic elite. They had seen humanity's small, outdated ship's vessels that seemed to be made of scrap metal by their standards and scoffed at their so-called weapons. "Let them continue their little space exploration projects," said High Commander Elnor, a being with translucent blue skin and a large, shining crest on his head. "They are no threat. We should allow them to join our council for appearances, but that's as far as it should go." The galaxy had watched Earth grow, but never with respect. Instead, they saw a species struggling to keep up. Sure, humanity had its moments of bravery, determination, but those moments never seemed to be enough. The galaxy had seen Earth's small ships, their clunky technology, and laughed at their audacity to think they could compete with the vast empires that ruled the stars. But there was one thing they didn't know. For centuries, humans had been hiding their true power. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in secret locations around the world, the most advanced ships the galaxy had ever seen were being built. Hidden from the eyes of every other species, humanity had been preparing for this day. Despite their outward weakness, humans had developed technology so advanced, so powerful, that it could change the course of the galaxy. But humanity had been patient. They had bided their time, waiting for the right moment to show their strength, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would finally see them as equals. That moment was coming, and the galaxy's dismissal of Earth was about to come to an end. "Ambassador," Crick continued, his voice dripping with arrogance, "I suggest we ignore their pleas for more technology. Instead, let's focus on the real threats in the galaxy. The humans will eventually fall in line like the others." His words were final, dismissing any chance of humanity ever becoming a serious player in galactic politics. However, as he spoke, a quiet hum began to echo from deep within the chamber. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. It grew louder. The alien leaders paused, looking at each other in confusion. What was that sound? The hum was almost like the deep rumbling of thunder growing stronger, vibrating through the floor beneath them. At first, they assumed it was some minor disturbance, perhaps a malfunction in the chamber's systems. But then, the rumbling intensified. The walls trembled, the lights flickered, and a low, mechanical sound filled the room. The chamber began to shake, and the laughter slowly died down. Everyone turned their attention to the source of the noise. Ambassador Crick's face darkened. As the shaking grew more intense, "What is happening?" he demanded, standing up from his seat. The Syrexian diplomats exchanged worried looks, their silver skin reflecting the flashing lights overhead.
Ow.
No one had ever seen such a disturbance in this sacred space before.
Ow.
The shaking grew worse, and the alien leaders began to panic. This was not a normal malfunction. Without warning, the massive windows that overlooked the vast expanse of space darkened. Something was approaching, something big. As the shaking continued, a loud, deafening roar filled the chamber, shaking the very foundations of the station. Outside, in the stars, a massive object appeared in the distance, a ship, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its silhouette was enormous, almost incomprehensible. Its dark, sleek shape loomed larger by the second, blocking out the stars. In its wake, the alien leaders stared in disbelief as the object grew closer. It was not one of their ships, nor was it anything from any race they knew. It was human, and it was massive. A warship built with technology so advanced that it seemed to warp space itself. A weapon of destruction that could wipe entire fleets from existence in an instant. The council leaders could only watch as the human ship, a gargantuan structure made from dark metal and glowing energy cores, drifted silently toward the station. The once mocked humans had finally revealed their true power, and the galaxy's elite were paralyzed with fear. For the first time, the galaxy realized just how wrong they had been about Earth. The chamber was filled with stunned silence. For a moment, no one moved. The alien leaders, who had been so confident just moments ago, were now standing frozen in place, their eyes wide in disbelief. Outside the window, the human warship loomed, larger, its massive size swallowing up the stars. It was unlike any ship they had ever seen, and its arrival sent a cold wave of fear through the Galactic Council. The human ship was not. Just Begit was an overwhelming display of power. Its sleek, dark exterior glowed faintly, powered by energy cores that pulsed with an eerie blue light. The ship seemed to warp space around it, distorting the stars as it moved. There was something intimidating about its presence, something that made even the most powerful species in the galaxy uneasy. For a brief moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. How is this possible?" muttered Elnor, the High Commander of the Zirkle, his translucent blue skin almost as pale as the shock in his voice. His mind was racing, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. He had heard rumors about human technology, but this was far beyond anything he could have imagined. Crick, the Syrexian ambassador, stood with his mouth slightly open, his sharp features frozen in disbelief. The thought that humans had hidden such a weapon from the galaxy was unthinkable. For centuries, they had been laughed at, ignored, and underestimated. And now, they were standing before the very creatures who had mocked them with a warship, capable of rivaling the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. The Creel, who had been buzzing in unison just moments ago, fell silent. Even their hive mind couldn't process the enormity of the situation. These insectoid creatures, who had once ruled over the galaxy's most dangerous sectors, were now reduced to a state of confusion and fear.
Ow.
They had never seen anything like this before. The human ship, enormous and menacing, continued to approach the station, its engines glowing brighter with each passing second. The room seemed to shake with every thrum of its engines, and the alien leaders could feel the weight of its presence. No one had ever prepared them for this moment. No one had ever imagined that the humans whose ships had been laughed at, whose technology had been dismissed as primitive, could possess something so powerful. "Contact Earth," Crick said suddenly, his voice trembling. "We need to know what this is. We need to understand what we're dealing with." His words snapped the other leaders into action. The room filled with the sound of rapid communication. As alien diplomats scrambled to make contact with the human ship, but as they attempted to establish a link, nothing happened. The human ship remained silent, its communication channels closed. It was as if the ship was a living entity, aware of its power and unwilling to share its secrets. The tension in the room grew. Humans, for once, were in control. The once dismissed species had turned the tables in a way that no one could have predicted. The alien leaders began to feel the weight of their arrogance pressing down on them. How had they misjudged Earth so completely? How had they failed to see the potential of a species that had, for so long, been underestimated? The human warship continued its approach, growing larger by the second. As it neared the station, the lights flickered, and the room darkened. It was as if the very presence of the ship was draining the light from the room. The alien leaders could feel the fear rising in their throats. This was no longer a moment of mockery or dismissal. This was a moment of reckoning. "This is it," said Elnor, his voice low and shaky. "The humans have done what we thought was impossible." Crick nodded slowly, his mind still racing. "We should have never underestimated them." Suddenly, the massive warship halted just outside the station's outer perimeter, hovering in the darkness of space. It was now so close that the alien leaders could see the intricate details of its design-sharp edges, reinforced plating, and the faint glow of energy shields that shimmered around it. The ship was a work of art, and yet it was terrifying. In its power, a low hum vibrated through the room as the human ship deployed its communication systems. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber. For a moment, the alien leaders feared it was a trick, that the humans were playing with their minds. But the hologram was real, and it was as clear as the stars outside, standing in the hologram was a human officer, a man dressed in a military uniform. His face was calm, almost expressionless, as if he had expected the galaxy to react this way. His voice when he spoke was steady and confident. "Greetings, Galactic Council," he said. "I am Commander John Harrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. I come with a message. Earth is no longer a minor player in the galaxy. We are here to claim our place among the stars." His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that seemed to crush the room. The alien leaders were left speechless, unable to comprehend the depth of what was happening. The humans, who had been laughed at and dismissed, were now declaring themselves a force to be reckoned with. For a moment, there was silence, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Then, slowly, the hologram flickered again, and a series of images began to play videos of human warships, massive fleets, all powered by technology that the galaxy had never seen before. The ships were swift, their weapons devastating. They cut through space with precision, leaving no doubt about the humans' newfound strength. The alien leaders stared at the hologram in disbelief. The ship outside, the one they had feared and misunderstood, was just the beginning. It was clear now that humanity had not only caught up to the galactic powers, they had surpassed them. Commander Harrison's voice echoed again. "We will no longer be treated as lesser beings. You will respect us, or you will face the consequences. Earth is no longer a laughing matter." With those final words, the hologram shut off. The silence that followed was deafening. The alien leaders stood frozen in place, still processing what had just happened. The galaxy was about to change, and the once dismissed humans were at the center of it all. The silence in the room felt heavier now. It wasn't the silence of calm or peace, it was the silence of fear. The leaders of the Galactic Council were still processing what had just happened. The human officer had spoken clearly, and with every word, the walls that had once held the power of the galaxy's greatest empires seemed to crumble. Outside the window, the human warship continued to hover, its massive form like a shadow casting over the council station. The galaxy had always seen humanity as weak, unworthy of respect. But now, with the flicker of a hologram and a few simple words, everything had changed. The humans had revealed the true strength they had kept hidden for so long. Commander John Harrison's message had been simple, but powerful. "We are here to claim our place among the stars." And the alien leaders could not ignore the message. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage, they had arrived as a new, dominant force, and the galaxy was forced to recognize them. But as the hologram vanished, the reality began to sink in. The humans weren't just a minor species with a few outdated ships, A warship outside was only the beginning. The images that had appeared on the hologram displayed a fleet of ships, each one more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. Ships that could travel faster than light, weapons capable of destroying entire planets, and defenses strong enough to resist any attack. The Galactic Council, which had once been a place where the most powerful races in the universe gathered, now felt small. The once mighty species, whose fleets had dominated the galaxy for centuries, now seemed fragile and weak in comparison. They had made the mistake of underestimating humanity, and they would pay the price for it. Ambassador Crick, the Cyrexian representative, was the first to speak after the silence. This is impossible," he said, his voice barely a whisper. His eyes were fixed on the hologram's last image. The human ships moving in formation, their power undeniable. How could they have hidden this from us? How could they have kept such power for so long? Ilnor, the high commander of the Zirkel, looked out the window, his mind racing. It doesn't make sense. The humans. We thought they were still using the same outdated technology from centuries ago. How could they have built something like this? The Creel leaders, whose hive minds had once seen themselves as the galaxy's strongest, were now silent. The fear that had spread through them was palpable. They had always believed that their vast fleets and relentless war tactics were enough to crush any threat. But they had never considered the humans. The humans have known for centuries what they were capable of, said a voice in the back of the room. It was the voice of the Yumi, one of the most ancient species in the galaxy. Their race was old, their wisdom vast. And now they saw the humans for what they truly were, a species that had hidden its strength. Waiting for the right moment to strike, the Umi leader, a tall, slender figure with glowing eyes, turned to the others. "We were wrong," he said. "The humans have kept their true power hidden from us. They are not weak, as we once thought. They have only been waiting, watching, until the moment was right." The room fell silent once again. The realization hit all at once. The humans were not just a rising power, they had been playing a long game, a game of patience. They had waited, keeping their greatest secrets hidden, while the galaxy laughed at them and underestimated their potential. "We cannot allow this to continue," said Crick, his voice more determined now. "We must take action. We must show them that the galaxy will not be ruled by a primitive species." But even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't that simple. The humans had already proven that they could stand up to the greatest empires in the galaxy. They had shown that their technology was not something to be laughed at, it was something to be feared. The question that hung in the air was clear. Could the Galactic Council stop them? Could they face off against humanity, now that they had revealed their true military strength? Before anyone could respond, the station's alarms blared, cutting through the tense silence. A loud, sharp sound echoed through the room, alerting everyone to a new development. The communication systems flared to life, and a new hologram appeared. In the center of the room, this time it wasn't the humans. It was a transmission from a human fleet. The image was of another ship, this one smaller but still incredibly powerful. Its dark, sharp edges and smooth metallic surface were unmistakable. But what caught the attention of the alien leaders was what appeared on the screen beside the ship. A message scrolled across the screen. "We are just the beginning." The alien leaders exchanged confused glances. Humans weren't just sending a message, they were declaring their arrival. They weren't just a fleet, they were a force that could reshape the entire galaxy. Then, the human officer's voice rang out once more. "This is just one of many. Our fleet is already spread across the galaxy. Earth is no longer just a planet. It is the heart of a new empire." The alien leaders stared at the transmission, a cold shiver running down their spines. They had never considered the possibility that the humans might be working together. They had coordinated their fleets, built them in secret, and now were preparing to move across the stars as one unified force. "We should have never doubted them," muttered Elnor, his voice thick with regret. Crick slammed his fist on the table. "This is a disaster. We cannot let them get any stronger." But it was too late. The moment the humans had chosen to reveal their power, the galaxy's fate had already been sealed. The old empires that had ruled for centuries were now facing a new power, one they had no control over. As the transmission ended, The room fell into a deep silence once again. The once great leaders of the Galactic Council had been reduced to nothing more than spectators, watching as humanity stepped forward. To claim its place in the stars, the galaxy would never be the same again. No one would laugh at humans ever again. The once proud leaders of the Galactic Council were now in a state of panic. The room once filled with confident voices was now eerily quiet. Alien faces, usually so composed, were filled with fear and disbelief. The humans had not only proven that they were a force to be reckoned with, they had done it in a way that no one had expected. The transmission had ended. But the room was still vibrating with the energy of the moment. The alien leaders knew they had made a fatal mistake. For centuries they had seen themselves as the rulers of the galaxy, the ones who set the rules, the ones who decided who would rise and who would fall. And yet, they had underestimated a species that had once been nothing more than a small, barely known presence on the outskirts of galactic affairs. Ambassador Crick of the Syrexians, still shaken, gripped the edge of the table with his sharp, silver fingers. "We cannot just sit here and wait," he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. "We need to act now. The humans are already stronger than we ever imagined." Elnor, the High Commander of the Zirkle, nodded slowly, his mind racing. He had fought in many battles, commanded massive fleets, and had seen the destruction that the galaxy's most powerful ships could cause. But the humans had something no one had expected: an entire fleet that was not only advanced, but also strategic. The humans had planned every move carefully, waited until the perfect moment to strike, and now they were in control. "We should have known," Ilnor muttered, his voice heavy with regret. "We should have seen this coming." The humans never acted like the others. They never sought power, they just quietly built it. The Creel, the insect-like species, with their powerful hive minds, remained silent. For them, silence was a sign of deep thought, but it was also a sign of fear. The Creel had long believed in their overwhelming numbers and relentless tactics, but they had never encountered a species like humanity. The humans were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. The Yumi leader, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, now spoke. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of centuries of wisdom. "It is too late to fight them with our fleets," he said, his glowing eyes scanning the room. "The humans have something we do not. They have unity, they have determination, they have a cause." The words of the Yumi hit the council like a thunderclap. The realization dawned on everyone. The humans had built their fleet not through sheer numbers or advanced technology alone, but through the strength of their unity. They had come together, despite their many differences, to create something unstoppable. And now, that unity was their greatest weapon. "We underestimated them," Crick said, his voice bitter with frustration. "We saw them as weak, as fragmented. We thought we could control them, push them around, and they would never fight back. But they've turned the tables on us." The alien leaders knew they could no longer ignore the humans. Their decision to laugh at the humans, to dismiss them as nothing more than a nuisance, had been their biggest mistake. And now they were paying the price. "How do we respond?" Elnor asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "Cannot simply send our fleets to fight them? They have the technology to destroy entire planets with a single strike. If we attack, we risk losing everything." Crick slammed his fist onto the table. "Cannot let them take control of the galaxy. If we don't fight back, we will lose everything we've worked for. The humans must be stopped." But as the words left his mouth, a deep, uncomfortable silence filled the room. The alien leaders knew the truth. They were no longer in control. The humans had proven that they were a force capable of changing the galaxy's power balance. And the realization hit them hard. They could not simply defeat humanity by brute force alone. To win, they would need something more. "We need to negotiate," said the Yumi leader, his voice calm but firm. "We must find a way to meet them on equal ground. We cannot afford to fight them in open war, not when they have the advantage. The humans may have kept their strength hidden, but we still have power. We must use our wisdom and resources to find a solution." Elnor nodded slowly. "A diplomatic approach. You may be right. If we continue to fight, it will only escalate the situation. The humans are not like us. They are unpredictable. We must try to understand them, to reason with them before it's too late. Crick, however, was not convinced. Reason with them? You think the humans will listen to us now, after we laughed at them? After we dismissed their strength? They will never trust us again. We have no choice, said the Yumi leader. We fight, we risk destroying everything. If we negotiate, we may find a way to coexist. The humans may have power, but they also have something we do not understand, something that sets them apart from us. They have the ability to change, to adapt, to unite. We must acknowledge that power. The council fell silent again, each leader lost in their own thoughts. The weight of their decisions hung heavy in the air. The galaxy had changed in an instant, and there was no turning back. The once dominant empires, the ones who had held power for so long, were now facing a new reality. Reality where humanity was no longer a joke. It's no longer a weak species to be ignored. Humanity had arrived, and they had come with a message that the galaxy could not ignore. Outside, the human fleet remained poised, waiting for the next move. It was clear now that the humans were not just a species with a powerful fleet. They were a force that could reshape the galaxy. And as the alien leaders sat in silence, they understood that the galaxy would never be the same again. The panic that gripped the room was not just fear of war, it was the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, the fear that, no matter what they did, they might never be able to regain the control they had once taken for granted. And for the first time in their long, proud histories, the leaders of the galaxy realized something that had never crossed their minds before. They were no longer the most powerful species in the universe. Humans had taken their place, and now it was time for the galaxy to face the consequences. The Galactic Council sat in silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on them like a storm cloud. The alien leaders, once so confident in their power, now found themselves at a crossroads. The humans had made their move, and the galaxy was forever changed. No one could deny that the balance of power had shifted. The humans had not just revealed their true strength, they had proven it. And now, Council had to figure out how to respond. Commander John Harrison's words echoed in the minds of the alien leaders. Earth is no longer just a planet. It is the heart of a new empire. The humans had claimed their place in the galaxy, and they weren't going to give it up. The question now was how the rest of the galaxy would respond to this new reality. The leaders of the council gathered once again in the Grand Chamber. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Crick, the Cyrexian ambassador, was the first to speak, his voice tinged with frustration. We cannot ignore them. They are a threat to everything we've built. If we don't act now, we will lose control of the galaxy. The humans have shown that they are not to be underestimated. If we let them grow stronger, they will dominate us all. Ilnor, the High Commander of the Zhurkul, stood with his arms crossed, deep in thought. We cannot fight them directly. Their technology is far beyond ours. A full-scale war would only lead to destruction. We would lose everything. He paused, his eyes scanning the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. We must find another way. The Creel, who had been silent for most of the meeting, finally spoke. Her hive mind was in full agreement. We must find common ground with the humans, the leader of the Creel said. If we continue to resist them, we risk not only losing the war, but also everything we have worked for. The humans are not like the other races. They have something we do not understand, something that unites them. Cannot fight that. The Yumi leader, wise and ancient, nodded in agreement. The humans have shown incredible strength, but they also have something else, something that sets them apart from the rest of us. Their unity, their resolve, their ability to adapt. These are not things we can isolate defeat. We must try to understand them, to find a way to work together, or we will be left behind. Crick's expression darkened. Think we should just accept them as equals? Let them walk all over us? Yumi leader's gaze was steady. Not as equals, but as a new power in the galaxy. We must acknowledge their strength and find a way to coexist. If we do not, we risk losing everything. For a long moment, no one spoke. The alien leaders were struggling with the truth of what had been said. The galaxy, which had long been ruled by their empires, was no longer in their hands. The humans had come from nowhere and turned everything upside down. They had brought with them a power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and now they were demanding a place at the table. "We cannot fight them with force," Elnor said quietly, his voice heavy with the burden of the situation.
Ow.
"But we can try to negotiate. We must find a way to work with them, to make them see that we are not their enemies. We must make them understand that we are willing to respect their strength, but we will not allow them to take control of the galaxy." Crick, though still skeptical, nodded reluctantly. "So we negotiate. But we must be careful. The humans are not like the other races. They have shown that they are not afraid to fight for what they want. If we do not give them what they want, they will not hesitate to use their power to take it." The Creo leader buzzed in agreement. "The humans will not back down. They will not be cowed by threats. But they may listen to reason if we approach them carefully." The Yumi leader's voice was calm but firm. "We must remember that this is not just about power. It is about understanding. The humans have shown that they can be both strong and compassionate. They have a sense of unity that we cannot ignore. If we can find a way to respect that, perhaps we can find a way to coexist." The room fell silent again, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. The galaxy had changed, and the leaders of the Galactic Council knew that they could not return to the old ways. The humans had come to stay, and they would not be pushed aside. The only question now was how the galaxy would respond to this new order. As the meeting came to a close, the leaders agreed that they would open negotiations with the humans. They would offer a seat at the table, not as equals, but as a new force to be reckoned with. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to avoid a galaxy-wide conflict that could destroy everything they had built. Meanwhile, outside the council station, the human fleet continued to hover, waiting. Humans were patient. They had waited for this moment for centuries, and now that it had arrived, they were in no rush. They knew the galaxy would not accept them easily, but they were prepared to wait. They had the power, and they knew that eventually the galaxy would come to them. Commander John Harrison stood on the bridge of the human warship, looking out at the stars. His face was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes. "This is just the beginning," he said to his crew. "The galaxy is about to change, and we will be the ones to lead it." His words were quiet, but they carried a weight that resonated throughout. The ship, the humans, had come from humble beginnings, but now they were on the verge of something great. The galaxy would never be the same again,